Dead Rising is a game that may look Western in setting, but it is in fact very Japanese. A game designed by an absolute madman who chose to implement systems that gamers generally hate, punish players who made too many mistakes, and worked hard to make a game as stressful as possible for first-time players. And somehow still managed to pull it off. A game where almost anything can be used as a weapon. And a game where the only thing more brain-dead than the zombies you kill are the survivors you save. When Frank West arrives at Willamette, Colorado, the area is already cordoned off by the National Guard. Flying over the chaos, Frank believes that a massive riot has broken out. But you know, it's clearly zombies. The helicopter pilot narrowly manages to drop you off at the mall and promises to return to pick you up in 3 days' time. On the roof you meet Carlito, who avoids Frank's questions and tells him to see the commotion for himself. Inside, you find a group of survivors that have barricaded off the entrance to the mall. You also notice a few people who seem a little out of place. A young woman who leaves before Frank can ask her any questions, and an old man who accuses Frank of bringing him to the mall. Then, an old lady overpowers several grown men, opens up the doors and lets in the zombies so she can retrieve her pet dog. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Who would believe that anybody, during a time of crisis, would put their own selfish needs above the safety and well-being of those around them? It's inconceivable. Then, as the zombies flood into the mall, you'll either futilely protect the survivors in the plaza and get eaten in the process, or you'll run away and leave everyone to die. Either way, you'll end up in the security room with a handful of survivors. Otis, a mall worker, and Brad and Jesse, DHS agents sent to uncover the source of the zombie outbreak. As a photojournalist, Frank leverages his way into the investigation and teams up with Brad and Jesse to uncover Carlito's involvement, find out who that old man was, and discover the cause of the outbreak. It should be noted that the story is played dead serious. All the comedy comes directly from the player's input. So the main draw of Dead Rising is that you can use anything and everything as a weapon. That includes metal pipes, kitchen knives, excavators, swords, lawnmowers, soccer balls, boomerangs, frying pans, plant pots, stacks of CDs, sledgehammers, shotguns, barbells, dumbbells, skateboards, and a really big umbrella. Weapons of limited durability and break over extended use. Eating and drinking things you find in the mall will restore your health, and there's an ever-present kill counter in the corner of the screen, and reaching certain murder milestones, along with performing various miscellaneous activities around the mall, will level you up. As a mere photojournalist, Frank begins the game with very little combat abilities, extremely low health, and an embarrassingly slow movement speed. As you kill zombies, defeat bosses, save survivors, or just play around the mall, you gain prestige points, also known as PP. Gain enough prestige and you'll level up, getting stronger, faster, and able to hold more weapons. As with any other man, Frank wants nothing more than to extend his PP as much as possible. Once your PP hits maximum level, you become an angel of death, capable of decimating any and every zombie within your reach, whether you're holding a weapon or not. Dead Rising is a game that not only encourages restarting your playthrough, it often requires it, especially for first-time players. If you, say, fail to save a mission-critical NPC or don't make it to the next quest giver in time, you'll fail the main quest. But you'll still be allowed to continue the game until you're rescued. Every time you start again, your level remains the same, and you keep all your stats and abilities. Then, in your next playthrough, you'll have learned more about the game systems and have better means to progress further than you did before. It's a game about experimenting and learning, finding out which shops provide the best items, and exploiting the game before it exploits you. The other major element at play is time. Every mission and side mission has a timer attached to it. At any point, Frank can look at his watch to see the time, and also select his next objective. If you arrive at your destination too late, the survivor you are looking for may disappear forever, the mission you were on may fail, or you might even get a completely different outcome altogether. Now, remember when I said that this game was designed by an absolute madman? Well, that madman was Keiji Inafune, and he thought to himself, you know that gameplay element that is universally reviled among gamers? Escort missions? Yeah, I'm gonna base a whole game around it, and thus, survivors were implemented. Survivors are stupid, suicidal, frustrating, annoying, but above all, absolutely essential to my enjoyment of the game. Think of them as mentally handicapped Pokemon. You're going to want to catch them all. They can be found out in the wild defending themselves against zombies, being held prisoner by psychopaths, or just generally being trapped with no hope of escape without your intervention. Each one has their own backstory and may need a different approach to rescue. These Japanese tourists, for example, will continuously run away from you unless you find a book on conversational Japanese. Then you can speak to them in Japanese, calm them down, and bring them with you to the security room. Or this man, who will continuously attack you until you beat the crap out of him before he will even listen to what you have to say. Most survivors can be equipped with weapons, and even prefer certain types of weapons to others.
Fantastic!
If they're wounded, you can feed them to heal them. And some are so injured or psychologically distraught when you find them that you may need to carry them or lead them by the hand to safety. At times, you'll find yourself guiding a large group of vengeful spirits who wreak havoc on all the zombies around them. Other times, you'll be dragging around a bunch of genetic dead ends who are a greater risk to themselves and others than the zombies trying to eat them. Have you ever wanted to experience a gamified version of the figure of speech, to herd cats? Watch hopelessly as survivors run into danger, have frequent mental breakdowns in the middle of a zombie horde, get stuck on basic geometry, and generally make you question whether they're worth saving at all. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Early on, you're given the transceiver from Otis, who provides you with side quests. Does he ever give you missions when you're standing right in front of him? No. But will he wait until the second you enter hostile territory? Oh god, yes. Otis is one of the few NPCs who have absolutely no spoken dialogue at all. But ironically, he's the only NPC in the game that needs spoken dialogue. Imagine, if you will, that you're being surrounded on all sides by flesh-eating zombies. Then Otis calls you to tell you about a survivor he found on the cameras. If you answer, you'll put away your weapons and become totally helpless, while also reading his dialogue on the screen. But God help you if a zombie even caresses your arm, or one of the survivors, I don't know, shoves you to the ground. The call ends. Then Otis will call you back, just to grill you for hanging up on him, then carry on with what he was saying, and the cycle begins anew. How this stayed in the game during development, I will never understand. As I said, Frank is a photojournalist, and that's not some small part of his backstory. Photography directly ties in with the gameplay. Frank never leaves the security room without his trusty camera. Taking good photos will also give you prestige points. At certain points during gameplay, you'll see a PP sticker. Taking a photo of the sticker during the brief moments revealed will give you the big PP. The mall is also filled with hidden photo opportunities, represented by these tiny little stickers. I didn't even know about them back in 2006. This is also where some questionable decisions were made. Early on, a character challenges you to take an extremely erotic photo for him. The best way to get this photo is to visit Sophie, who you can save from a group of psychopaths. As she lays on the floor, weeping over the loss of her soulmate, you can take an upskirt photo of her to complete the mission. As I said, very questionable. Now, let's talk about the boss battles in the game. The psychopaths are people that have either been turned insane by the stress of losing loved ones, are taking advantage of the chaos to fulfill their twisted needs, or are completely overcome by fear or paranoia. It's a diverse bunch of weird and wonderful bastards. To name a few, you have Adam the Clown, whose mind was completely twisted by watching the children in his audience be eaten alive. Cliff, a Vietnam War veteran who has been completely overwhelmed by flashbacks. And Steven, the supermarket manager who, This is my store! I don't know, that looks like pretty normal store manager behavior to me. Each psychopath has their own unique moveset and require different strategies to defeat. They'll drop unique weapons for you to use, or even unlock shortcuts in the mall. For the most part, they can be pretty tough to defeat at first. Some of them might even feel impossible. But once you learn their weaknesses, you'll have no trouble at all. And after a few playthroughs, you'll start styling on them. Dead Rising doesn't mess around with its difficulty. It can be hard sometimes, and there's only a handful of save points spread across the map. If you die, fail the main quest, or lose a survivor and want to try again, be prepared to lose up to an hour of progress if you forgot to save. The time limits get tighter as the game progresses. It's possible to do everything, but only barely, and definitely impossible on your first couple of runs. With more experience, you'll start optimizing your runs. Each time you leave the safe house, you'll start planning routes, working out how to best complete missions and pick up survivors on the way back. Learn which areas to avoid, which weapons to keep, and which enemies just aren't worth it. It's a fantastic game for people with a compulsive need to beat their personal best. Once you've spent enough time in Dead Rising, you'll have become the next god of war. You will smite all those who oppose you. A max level unarmed Frank is a sight to behold. Watch him effortlessly disembowel his enemies, kick them across the room, sever limb from body with a single karate chop, toss them around like ragdolls, and perform actions that I don't even think are possible. Dead Rising is Capcom's second best wrestling game. Yeah, I'll get to you another time. How does this all control, you might ask? Well, the controls are fairly simplistic. There's one button to attack, but holding it down can charge up a special attack with some weapons. Movement, although slow at first, is quite responsive. All in all, you won't find much to complain about. Except for the shooting controls. Aiming is extremely stiff and cumbersome, especially on a gamepad. The first boss battle in the game is a shootout, and by god it is hard to get used to. The crosshair jerks around left and right. The controller dead zone, which determines the amount of stick movement required to register an input, is too damn high. On a mouse it feels way too floaty and unnatural. Eventually you'll get used to it, but it's annoying nonetheless. Luckily, if you stand still while shooting, Frank will automatically target his enemies. It won't always be accurate, but by the end I started to favour this approach. Dead Rising was the first game to run on the MT Framework engine, Capcom's proprietary game engine. And I've got to say, I love this engine. There's something about the games produced on this engine that just feels so solid. If it's a Capcom game with hyper-detailed character models against some low-resolution environmental textures, it's probably MT Framework. On its original release on Xbox 360 in 2006, it ran at 720p with 30 frames per second. Now, on a modern PC, we can get 1080p at 60 frames per second quite easily, with no screen tearing at all. There's noticeable pop-up with background zombies, but considering the amount that appear on screen, it's still a fantastic effort for an engine's debut. To the untrained eye, Dead Rising might strike you as a mindless zombie killing game, but despite its simplicity, there is a surprising amount of depth and attention to detail when you combine all the different systems together. Time management, resource management, navigation, tard wrangling, and put them all together with a moment-to-moment gameplay. What you get is a game where even the simplest of decisions can have consequences or rewards. Or both. Killing zombies may help you to level up, but it also damages your weapons, puts your health at risk and can waste some of your time. Mastering this balancing act is key to getting the most out of it. And what about the story? Let's have a look at that, shall we?
Do you have any idea how much meat Americans consume in a single day?
Aw, shut up! Dead Rising isn't for everyone, but if you don't like escort missions, you can ignore them. If you just want to kill some zombies and forget about the story, you can do that too. If you just want to see what happens when you jam a shower head into a zombie, well, it looks like this. It's a game that is uncompromising in its design, and as a result will probably turn away a lot of new players. But at its core, it's a game that has been filled with so much attention to detail, so much love, that I can't recommend it enough. Despite its flaws, it's one of my favourite games of all time. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.
Just leave it to me. Okay.